Streaming.
1 minute until showtime.
We are live on YouTube, as always, about a minute early, waiting for the Blog Talk radio show to start up. So now I'm not singing at the beginning of this one, but we'll see. I went back down to the goatee, so you can give me your opinion as to whether or not you like the full beard or the goatee. We'll see. Make sure we're streaming live well. We got 33 seconds left according to the countdown clock on Blog Talk Radio, but we are using this to, do all that good fun stuff. So it looks like we have a good signal. Looks like we are live on YouTube fine. Looks like we're ready to start the Blog Talk Radio show in about 10 seconds, so thank you very much for joining. If you are watching early,
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
Welcome back to Liberal. That helps if I start the show on Blog Talk Radio as well. And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. If you're listening on blogtalkradio.com, you can always join us in the chat. Sign in with your free blogtalkradio.com account. Go to the episode page at blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan and go to the bottom of the episode page and you'll find the chat room there. You can also chat with us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/liberaldanradio and you can join us live over here and give your chat as well. And you'll be able to see some of the graphics I may be putting up a little bit later in the show. If you do happen to want to see them, we did have some data from last week, and I'm hoping that our friends from the West Coast will join us back again, because there is an update, and it looks like my prediction, spoiler alert, my prediction about the data and the deaths from that week seemed to be true, and we'll see what that was or what that is once we know that they are listening live, because I don't want to have to repeat myself. Anyway, if you're listening after the live broadcast, you could always leave your comments. Good. Starting off the year well with some very good vocabulary and diction. You can leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, or at liberaldanradio on Twitter. And you can always, again, also leave comments in the comment section on the YouTube page for the live stream. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube and if you haven't liked the video yet, please go ahead and like, and subscribe to the video as well, and subscribe to the channel as well, because the only way that the show can grow will be if we can have support from listeners like you or watchers like you on YouTube. We got a lot of interesting stuff today. The sad news of the week is Betty White, many people's hero, talented producer, actress, comedian. She passed away. She did not make it to 100. I think a lot of people were assuming that she would be making it to 100, and then of course she passed away right before the end on New Year's Eve 2021. Lots of fond memories of her from especially the Golden Girls. I used to watch Golden Girls when I was younger. I still watch some episodes of Golden Girls as well because the show holds up. And one of the things that really just impressed me about Betty White is just the fact that you can't play. I don't think she even called Rose dumb. I think she called her more naive. But everybody just assumed, oh, she's the stupid character. You can't play a stupid character that well without being extremely intelligent. Like, you have to have some extreme intelligence. Like, I watch wrestling too, and there's this one guy, R-Truth, Ron Killings, and he is known to be very, he'll do just some really just off-the-wall zany, and you look at him and, like, how the character that he plays is dumb. But you have to be really smart to play a character that dumb. You have to be able to pass it off as not being forced is just, it's a work of genius. So, and of course, even when they were showing the things over the weekend, I learned new things. Like, she was the first woman to produce a television show back in the 50s, I think it was. I think she was going to be the first woman anchor on the Today Show, and she passed it up. So according to her, they had to settle for Barbara Walters. You had what was the other thing I wanted to say? There's just so much to say about Betty White. So she paved the way, a trailblazer, paved the way for many talented people to make it in the industry. And so hats off to you. If I wore a hat, I would remove it. I'm not wearing a hat at the moment, so proverbial hats off to you. Thank you for being a friend. Other news, I was shaking my head at the World Tennis Organization, whatever they're called, the body that handles tennis tournaments, because Djokovic, as in is Wayne Brady going to have to Djokovic? He doesn't like vaccines. He doesn't want to take vaccines. He's opposed to vaccines. And the tennis body was going to be like, sure, we'll give you an exception. Come play at our tournament. We give you an exception to come play at our tournament. They passed the buck. Australia said, no way, mate. You're not coming down here with your Rona. They basically said, you don't get an exception. Your visa's canceled. You can't come to our country. You have to follow our rules. And if you're unwilling to get vaccinated, later, bruh. I don't think they said later, bruh. I don't know. Take a walk on the outback. He can't even go to the outback because he can't go into Australia because he's not vaccinated and he refuses to take a vaccine. So, according to Bringing a Boy and them, I guess that's discrimination against Djokovic because he chose to not get vaccinated, so then he has to deal with the consequences of that. That's the thing. It's not discrimination. Unfortunately, I was going to say, unfortunately, Demonox has been too busy to listen to the show. And literally, just as I was saying unfortunately, there goes Demonox in the chat. Shouts out, thank you for joining us, Demonox. I'm glad you could join in this week. You probably did not want to miss it if Bringing a Boy came in. Massachusetts is going crazy with infections, and Governor Charlie Half-Baked won't even do a mask mandate. I don't think we have one down here either at the moment. We do have vaccine mandates, and in New Orleans we have some vaccine mandates that are more extreme than the rest of the state. Like, in order to go to a restaurant in New Orleans, now 5 and up, if you're 5 and up, you either have to show vaccination or you have to show proof of a COVID test. I do also think Maybe they have some masking requirements. I don't know. The signs are up in many places that are asking you to mask. I know the one place that we go to, they closed off the inside place for sitting and consuming your beverages, so all beverages have to be consumed outside. Which, we're in New Orleans, we get to drink outside with your beverages. I guess if you're in a restaurant courtyard in other states, you can, but in New Orleans, you can walk down the street as long as it's not a glass container. So according to Mrs. Boy, laws aren't legal if they are annoying. Yes, laws are not legal if they are annoying. No, but I was getting some good feedback on from Demonox, and I don't know if I made the point or not that he made in our chat, but if if discrimination is things where you can't choose your race, you can't choose your ethnicity. I guess you can choose religion, but for some reason we kind of sometimes hold that religion is still, you're born into it, so therefore, it's not usually seen as a choice, even though it technically is. But there are people who, like anti-Semites, Nazis, or whatever, who would look at somebody like myself, regardless of if I'm practicing or not. They would say, "Oh, it doesn't matter if you're practicing. You were born Jewish, so you're Jewish, so therefore we want to yeet you off the cliff." Those things are those. I didn't have a choice to people, or not to people who are Jewish, so I guess that's not a choice. But things that you can't be discriminated against for things that are choices. Like if you're getting a consequence from your choice, that's not discrimination. So Djokovic is not being discriminated against because he won't vaccinate. Djokovic is dealing with the consequences of his own decisions. If he wants to deny the science, he's free to do so, but he's not free to cross the border of Australia, go down under, go spread the Rona down to the koalas and kangaroos. I only know one, I think, Australian song other than the bands from Australia, but it's not a very good song. Like the tie the kangaroo down sport, if you're familiar with that song, apparently it's not a very culturally sensitive song. Apparently they refer to the Aboriginal folks as in a derogatory way in the second verse, and so it's not the best song, mate. As I do my bad, listen, as my commercial says, listen to those bad impressions is more. So here's my bad impressions. I'm really disappointed that Bringing a Boy is not currently listening, or if they haven't commented yet, because I have information and I want to share the information with them. But I'm not gonna. I guess we could probably go over it twice if we really, really wanted to. I've never repeated myself at all on this show. But we can start going back over, I guess, some of the year in review. I think I just made it to the tip of February, just the tip, when I was discussing what went on the podcast last year, kind of going over the review. I think back, I can't believe that this is February 2021. Hey, there's Bringing It Boy, Daily News. Welcome, y'all joining the show. So y'all are watching on YouTube. So let me go ahead and before we go over the reviews, I guess maybe if I say Nimbus Yosh, the host of the Most of the Percy podcast, will he join us too? I mean, one can only hope. I'm not holding my breath. He hasn't done anything show related in a while, and he should, because he's the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast. And the world needs the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast. According to the one song, they claim what the world needs now is love, sweet love. But I believe that what the world needs now is to combine Voltron and get the world according to Knox, the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, and Libertine Radio, talk from the left. That's right. So let's bring up the settings here. No, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay, So here we go. This is the screenshot that I took last week. And during the conversation, Nimbus juice, Nimbus juice, Nimbus juice. Yes. Here's the screenshot that I took last week. And if you remember, no, that's not it. Is that it? Hold on. I don't know. I think I'm confusing my stuff. Let's see. Let's compare the two. Oh yeah, that's right. I think I was getting confused with the totals and the dates, and I was getting them confused. Let's pull this back up again. Display capture. Just call it numbers to bring it back up. No, we don't want that one. No, we want that one. Yes, there we go. That's what we want. All right. So as you can see, here we go. 12/25/2021. According as of the data as of 12/29/2021. Oh, hi Joe, how's it going? We'll get to your mass comment in a second. So according as of 12/29/2021, the data showed. I'll put a little red mark on it. 1646. 1,646 of all deaths involving COVID-19. And it was brought to our attention by Mrs. Boy, as Demonox called her, that well, isn't it good that we have the deaths are going down from COVID-19? And I'm sitting there going, well, the date is not necessarily the, that's not a very long amount of time. I'm positing, or I posited that likely meant that these are provisional numbers, and that we might have more numbers coming in later as the data comes in. So I'm kind of stacking the two right now, if you can see on YouTube. So here, the old data as of 12/29/2021. Here, data as of January 5th, 2022. Week ending 12/25/2021. And this is where I was getting confused, because I saw the second line and I saw the second line here, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting because it's almost the same, but no. So 12/25/2021 now has 4,325 deaths involving COVID-19 instead of the 1,646 deaths involving COVID-19 that we had last week. And then if you look at 12/11 here is 6,776, as opposed to now 12/11 is 7,942. So the numbers are being updated. Even looks like one of the, even the one numbers way back October 2nd, 2021 was 12,498. Now is 12,528. So a gain of 30, but still, these numbers are continuously coming in. I guess they're having to go through all of the information from each of the states as they come in. They put the data in the spreadsheets and then report the data as it comes in, as I said. So it seems to me that my prediction was true, that the 1,646 number was a low number, and based on provisional data, seeing that we did not have all of the data yet. And now this has confirmed my guess, my prediction. So we're not going to save that. We're going to turn that back off again so you can see my lovely, beautiful face. But anyway, that is the results of that investigation. I said we would look at it this week to see if there were any increases. There were increases. So we're gonna maybe, and we could check again next week if you want, and we'll see, whether or not they increase even more. And I don't know at what point we can say, okay, this is definitive, start getting diminishing returns, but we do have more deaths from that week, from the week ending December 25th, reported now than a week before. So I was right. Daily News says, my point was that the numbers are showing a downward trend, but we can't really say that the numbers are showing a significantly downward trend because we don't know if the numbers are complete yet. That's my point. My point is that it's not a complete view of what's going on. Now, like, for example, let's open it back up again. Let's look at some of the numbers from previous weeks. So we go to that again. Re-enable the screen. All right, so the week ending 12/11, 6776 versus 7942. So you've gained 1,000 in the last week. So the 12 that's not firm. Let's see, 1113, 6832, 696872. So getting 40. So you're getting less as the weeks go on. You're seeing less and less numbers being added to it. So maybe like a month and a half from now, we might be able to look at the numbers and be like, oh yes, there was a downward trend in deaths over the winter. And maybe that's because of the Omicron variant not being as deadly as the other variants. Maybe that's because of that. But it's premature to state that at this point because we don't have all the numbers in. Are you merely mincing words just to admit I was right? No, I'm not mincing words. I'm telling you that I was right because I was saying that we would probably see more numbers coming in, and we gained 3,000 deaths. The number tripled almost from what it was a week ago. Tripled. 1632. 240, a little less than triple, maybe 2.5 times the amount of deaths were added to the total numbers. So I was right. We don't know. We have the numbers for the week. We don't have all of the numbers for the week. That's my point. We don't have all of the numbers for the week. We have some. We're gaining more as the weeks go by. I'm sure we'll probably gain at least another 1,500, if not 2,000. Let's just bring it up one more time, just because I just want to see that again. Let's see. I just want to bring up, maybe look at one more set of numbers and be like, okay, 12/4 compared to 12/4. A month. So the numbers from a month ago, there was about a 500 death jump from last week to this week for the week ending 12/4. The week ending 11/27, it's about 200. So the 500 jump. 12/11, there was a 1,200 death jump. 12/18, there was about a 1,600 death jump, and there was over almost a 3,000 or about a 2,700 death jump. So it looks like it's kind of like almost halving. Like every week you get half as many. You get half as many deaths as you did the week before. But in the first week, it went from 1,600 to 4,300. So like maybe next week we might show that the week ending 12/25 is instead of being 2,300, maybe it'll be 1,200. So maybe next week we'll be at for week ending 20. Maybe next week we'll be at 5,500. And then the week after, we might have 600 more. So maybe the next week will be at 60 or 50, whatever, about 6,000. Then we might get in 300 to 500. So you might be at 63 to 6,500. At that point, is it really that much of a downward trend? So there you go. Let's see. I said significantly. I was wrong about significant. It's possible. I don't know how probable it is, but it's possible that maybe there are no more deaths, and then maybe it is a significant drop-off. I don't know. I mean, if it stays at 4,000, then that's almost half from 12/11. That would be significant. But if it goes all the way up to like 65, 68, 7,000, that's not as significant. What I'm saying, it's premature to say yes or no. That's all I'm saying. So there you go. Let's just turn off the screen in case I wanted to bring it up again. So let's scroll back up to Joe. Joe goes, you do know masks don't help against a virus. No, I don't know that because that is a factually false statement according to let's see. Demodoc says, I would like to report a non-COVID death. One of my customers at my new job, his wife died from heart complications, not COVID. It was because COVIDiots took all the hospital beds and she couldn't get treatment in time. If you choose not to get vaccine, it's fine. Hospitals should choose not to help you. There we go. So yeah, I was talking about that last week with other things. But yeah, people who choose to not be vaccinated. And again, this is not people who have no choice to not vaccinate. Like if your doctor says you can't take this vaccine, it'll kill you or it'll harm you, or you are one of those people who rely on herd immunity of other people, then yeah, don't take the vaccine. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. But if you're choosing not to take the vaccine and then you use up somebody's hospital bed because you caught COVID, no, you should get to the back of the line. Back of the line. Now, as to Joe, masks do help against the virus. And let me give the 30,000 mile high view of what it does, because a virus, you're going to probably say, or most people who bring that argument up will say, well, the virus is so small, so it can pass through the mask because the virus is so small, the mask can't stop it from going back and forth. But viruses don't fly in the air by themselves. Viruses travel on droplets of saliva. Those droplets of saliva are big enough to be blocked by whatever meshing there is in the mask. And even if the mask doesn't perfectly prevent all the saliva from leaving your genital area, it goes from like this to keeping most of it near you. And if you're already infected, you're not reinfecting yourself. So it's keeping more of the COVID-laden saliva, if you happen to have the virus, from leaving your genital area, which means it's less likely to infect other people. That is why we've been told to wear masks. It's not because it protects the wearer a whole heck of a lot, even though there is a modicum of protection for people who wear masks. There is some protection there. There's even more protection if you have eyewear on, because it's less likely to hit your eyeballs, hit your glasses, or if you're wearing a visor, it might stop it from hitting anywhere in here. But you can't just wear the face shield. You have to wear the face shield and the mask to keep it from spreading out to other people. But the mask, a little bit of help of you, a lot of help to prevent other people from getting sick because of you. So that's why masks work. And they do. And you can't say that they don't, because you're making a factually incorrect statement when you do so. I'm not going to say that you're lying, because again, there's a difference between stating a falsehood that you believe to be true and outright telling a lie. In order for you to be telling a lie, you have to know that it's wrong, but yet you're saying it anyway. It's one of my pet peeves when people just throw the liar word along the place. I'm not going to call you a liar, but I am going to say that you are factually incorrect and you are ignorant of the facts. Let's see, there's already a new mutation, and that's the problem with widespreading COVID. This strain might not be deadly, but it allows the spread immediately. Yeah, exactly. And it does. The more we do things that are back to normal, the more opportunities we give the virus to mutate, you could get another strain that becomes more deadly. And even if the strain is, I don't know what the percentage is of, how much less deadly Omicron is. I don't think we can say it yet. We do know it's less deadly, at least in the short term that we've seen it. We've seen a lot of people recover from it, and a lot more people recovering from it from other variants. But the more people that have it, the more opportunities it has to evolve inside your body and then spread out to other people. But even if a virus is less deadly but more contagious, it's possible. Let's say you get a slightly deadlier and more contagious version of what we originally had. So let's say it was 3 times as contagious but half as deadly. What would you want? Individually speaking, you would probably want to have the less deadly one individually, because if you have it, you're less likely to die. However, as a whole in the nation, we would want to see the other variant, because if it spreads 3 times as fast, even though it's half as deadly, it's going to kill 50% more people. Because it spreads more, so you have more opportunities for other people to die. So that, and the fact that we have a lot of people who don't understand these concepts means that I don't understand why I'm not as successful at poker as I'm successful at poker in like my small games. Like I do pretty well with my poker games when I play poker. But there's sometimes stupid but lucky beats smart any day. And I have a Minicast, I think. If you go to the Minicast, there was one where I was live streaming while I was playing some poker online with some friends of mine. I think I might have gone into the story of that. So go check that one out if you want to hear some poker stories. Yes, Dan mentions droplet size. In the case of masking and droplet size, I guess size matters. The number of cold and flu cases during COVID was drastically lower because during COVID peak and masking peak, we weren't spreading the flu because of masks and also social distancing. We were doing much. Our kids were at school, or not in school. Our kids were home, distance learning. Lots of people were distance learning. Lots of people were not going into the classroom. And my kids continued to do that for the entirety of the prior year. Because my wife is immunocompromised. So we wanted to protect my wife, we wanted to protect my kids. Now both of my kids are vaccinated, and my son's ready for his booster. So we have a fully vaccinated family, which is good. I'm very happy that we're fully vaccinated. But we still wear masks when we have to. When we go out. We went and played miniature golf the other day, and it was outside miniature golf, so we didn't wear masks because we stayed 6 feet away or more from any of the other golfers that were around us. And we were outside, so it was fine. But when we went into the, I guess, the pro shop or whatever you would call the little desk that handles the people going to play miniature golf, we put on our masks. Why? Because that was now indoors, and we wanted to make sure to protect the people who work there because, we don't want to get them sick if for some reason we happen to have it. Now, fortunately, my son's school, it's two campuses of the same, kind of umbrella elementary school, middle school type deal. They do testing every week. So we opted our kids in for testing every week. And there are conservatives who complain about testing kids. Like, why would you complain about testing? Unless you're Trump and you wanted to sugarcoat everything. There's no reason to complain about testing. Why? Because by testing, you get a full picture of what's going on. So, and every single week that my kids have come back with a test, guess what? They've been negative because we're responsible people and we make sure that they don't catch the damn virus. And they also do masking at school. Or they should be. At least they're doing it inside the classroom. Some of the looks from outside the classrooms, not the greatest when it comes to social distancing, at least. But we, there's been, I think, a couple of times where kids had to quarantine because they were not vaccinated and were exposed. But my son, because he's vaccinated, he gets to remain in school and he gets to do, learn in person because we're making sure that he's protected as protected as he can be and as less likely to spread the disease as he can be. So, anyway, let's go ahead and take the first commercial break. We will come back and take your calls as well. 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dane Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out budgeteers.com or go to youtube.com/budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. All right, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Deminox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDeminox. That's the letter X like X-Men, D-E-M-I-N-O-X. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. Normally I'd play some of my bits today, but I really didn't have the time or the effort. I was actually a little over at work today, so I didn't have enough time to put together both of my bits that I would normally do, but that could wait till next week. I was expecting to perhaps, I don't necessarily want to have another 3-hour show this week like we did last week, but, it happens, and if it happens, well, whatever. I'll continue talking if I have to, until Blog Talk Radio cuts me off. At least I guess I could go longer on YouTube, if I wanted to keep it longer on YouTube. But really depends on how I feel, because at the end of the day,
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Speaking of Donald, tomorrow is the anniversary of the attempted coup, the insurrection on January 6th, 2021. When Donald Trump supporters came to protest the election at the Capitol, and a large chunk of them decided that they were going to invade the Capitol building, causing destruction, attacking police officers, and threatening to hang Mike Pence if he did not do what Donald Trump wanted him to do, which is to prevent the counting or the certification of the votes, of the Electoral College votes, giving nobody 270 Electoral College votes, which would then mean that the House of Representatives would then vote to pick the President of the United States, which would then mean that Donald Trump likely would have become or won re-election based on that coup attempt. But here's the thing. Never in my mind would I have ever thought that I would utter the words, Dan Quayle helped save the democracy. Dan Quayle voted or helped to keep our constitutional republic intact. Never would I have thought I would have ever uttered those words at all. Not, you would have asked me that up to even I think halfway through last year. I don't think I learned that till after halfway through last year, about the phone call from Mike Pence to Dan Quayle, where Mike Pence was like, hey, do I have any options here? And Dan Quayle's like, nope, sorry, you don't have any options. You have no powers here. Your role is basically you preside over the meeting, and that's it. That's all you do. No more, no less. So so Dan Quayle saved the day. And while I may disagree with many things with Dan Quayle, and I might even disagree with things on Mike Pence, I mean, Mike Pence, for, what he did at the end of the day, he still tried to find a way to help Donald Trump steal the election. But at the end of the day, he had no legs to stand on So he had to be there with Madison Cawthorn and oppose Madison Cawthorn, I suppose. But the events of January 6, 2021 didn't start on January 6, 2021. The events started well before. You had on December 19th. Let's see. Well, let's say December 16th. This National Council of the Three Percenters original group, one of the Three Percenter militias, issues a statement alleging that there was widespread fraud perpetrated against American people. Statement continues, we stand ready and are standing by to answer the call from our president should the need arise that we the people are needed to take back our country from the pure evil that is conspiring to steal our country away from the American people. We are ready to enter the battle with General Flynn leading the charge. We will not act unless we are told to, and we will not act on our own as TTPO, but rather as a united body of American patriots. TTPO is the Three Percenters original. Trump then, 3 days later, announces that he announces that there is going to be a January 6th rally. He announced it on Twitter because at that point he still had the Twitter. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest on DC on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild. Will be wild. He knew that something was going on. Come on, Dan. They were look, and Bringing a Boy in the Blog Talk Radio chat says, Dan, they were Americans to support the wrongdoing. Look, and I'm very clear when I criticize the people. I'm not talking about this, and I talked about this last week, and you're still doing it again today. I've talked about this every single time I bring it up, and you're still doing it. Bringing a Boy, you're still doing it, which is, I talk about the people who were there to attack the Capitol, who shouted, "Hang Mike Pence," who invaded the Capitol, who assaulted police officers, who broke windows and doors, who stormed in, who threatened to overthrow the country. You want to bring in the rest of the people that were there who remained outside. I'm not talking about them. I'm never talking about them. I may disagree with those people politically, but the people who stayed outside the building, the people who were just there because they didn't like the fact that Donald Trump lost the election, or even if they wanted to believe the false theory that Donald Trump really won the election, if they were there and they were just there to support the candidate that they voted for in a peaceful way, I have no problem with them. Fine. Say what you want to say. Protest what you want to protest. That's America. America means you get to sit there and you get to state your feelings and disagreement against the government. You get to state them. You get to voice your opinion. You don't get to barge down the door of the Capitol. You don't get to attack police officers. You don't get to break the doors and take items from the House and Senate chambers, invade the offices of sitting members of Congress, and prevent them from doing their jobs. Which on that day was to make sure that, basically just a standard routine. Here are all the Electoral College votes. We're going to go through and approve each and every one of them to make it official that Joe Biden is the next president. I'm never talking about the peaceful people. So every time you insist on bringing up the peaceful people, when I'm criticizing the non-peaceful people, the people who attempted a coup, the people who did an insurrection, the people who invaded the Capitol, threatened violence against Mike Pence and others, who actually attacked people, police officers who were trying to prevent the people from coming in, and, the one that shot Ashley Babbitt. I'm not criticizing that person. I criticize Ashley Babbitt because she was jumping through a broken window towards a large group of people. From what I understand, I think Mike Pence was in that general direction. So here you have a group of people shouting that they wanted to hang Mike Pence, and then one of them jumps through a broken window, and you don't think that person should have been shot? That doesn't fly. But no, every time you bring up the peaceful people, you show that you're not listening to me. Every time you bring up the other people who I'm not talking about, you show that you're being disingenuous. Because you're being disingenuous when you do that. You're being dishonest when you do that, because I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that invaded the Capitol, the people that wanted to do violence, the people that wanted to do an act of insurrection, preventing Congress from doing their jobs that day, and preventing the will of the people from being spoken. Because the will of the people was to elect Joseph Robinette Biden. Bringing a boy, why did the Capitol Police open the doors and let the people in? Maybe some of the Capitol Police were involved in it. Bringing a boy, if a police officer opened the door to your house, would it be fine for me to walk into your house? Because the police officer said, yeah, sure, come in. And then I break some of your stuff and I steal some of your stuff. I take your laptop. Is it okay if I do that just because a police officer let me in? Police officer was like, oh, hey, I have this big pile of marijuana, and the marijuana is illegal where we are. You can go sell it, make a profit, have at it. Would the police officer letting me, would that make my actions legal? No. Those people should have known that doing what they were doing and entering that building was wrong. And those police officers, who I believe were fired, didn't have the authority to let them in and to approve of their doing illegal activities. A police officer cannot allow you to do an illegal activity. It's not a justification. You're welcome to bring up like any Supreme Court ruling that says otherwise. But I guarantee you that that members of the police officers, members of the Capitol Police who happened to open barricades and let people walk on in, were not. That's not a justification for then going in and attacking other police officers and breaking windows and stealing stuff and taking a laptop. That's not okay. You're not allowed to commit an insurrection because some police officer said, yeah, come on in. It's a ridiculous argument. I don't know why those police officers are. I don't know. Maybe they are. I know some of them got fired. And maybe, there's what, 700 people in jail for what they did in their actions on the insurrection and invasion of the Capitol. And there are probably going to be more. And maybe those police officers should be in jail. Maybe I'll look it up on the next commercial break, see if any of them are facing charges for those actions. Other than the repercussions of them being fired. Or maybe if they let them in, but if the police officers themselves didn't go in themselves and also commit an act of insurrection, maybe that's why they didn't get arrested. But I think that's why they got fired, because they abdicated their responsibilities that day. Let's see, what else happened on December 19th? Speaking at a rally in Arizona, Ali Alexander appears to advocate against violence against Republican members of Congress who do not fight to overturn the election results. December 20th, wildprotest.com is registered to host a website advertising the protest near the Capitol building from 10 to 5 on January 6th. On December 21st, according to Mo Brooks of Alabama, Trump met with several Republican members of Congress at the White House to discuss the planning and strategy for January 6th. Brooks told Politico that those plans are to challenge the results in 6 states. Total debate time would clock in around 18 hours. This means the vote counting process could bleed into the wee hours of January 7th. Attendees included Vice President Mike Pence, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Andy Biggs, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, Jody Hice, Jim Jordan, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who at that time was a representative-elect. Oath Keepers on December 22nd. Chapter leader Kelly Meggs writes, Trump said it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. He wants us to make it wild. That's what he's saying. He called us to the Capitol and wants us to make it wild. Sir, yes, sir. Gentlemen, we are heading to D.C. Pack your shit. George Papadopoulos gets a pardon. He is part of the D.C. events of January 5th. Roger Stone gets a pardon. He participates in the D.C. events on January 5th. In a phone call with Trump, DOJ officials remind that DOJ can't and won't snap its fingers and change the outcome of the election. Trump replies, just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. Trump again promotes the rally on January 6th. I should have done a Hypocrite of the Year. I mean, maybe I could do it over the commercial break. This week's Hypocrite is Hypocrite of the Year is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Senate Minority Leader has been Hypocrite of the Week so many times during Hypocrite of the Week that he is the only person who would qualify as Hypocrite of the Year. So congratulations to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Thank you very much for the nomination. See you next week. To see who next year's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in all year. Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan. Pretty good for on the fly, huh? So Park Service grants a permit for a First Amendment rally march for Trump at the Ellipse. Fine, and that's fine. That's cool. First Amendment rally is okay. I'm going to have no problem with them using their First Amendment rights to yell and bitch and moan about the fact that they lost the election. They want to be sore losers, fine. They have the right to be sore losers. Trump tweets date and time of January 6th. He then retweets a supporter who wrote, "The cavalry is coming, Mr. President, January 6th, Washington, D.C., and which Trump responds, a great honor." So he's calling them the cavalry. What else? It should be cavalry, but he's calling it the cavalry. You know what that means. They're being the cavalry. 13 U.S. senators, including Cruz and Hawley, along with 100 Republican members of the House, vowed to object to election certification. On January 3rd, Trump announces he'll be at the Ellipse rally. Trump orders recently appointed Secretary of Defense Chris Miller to do whatever is necessary to protect the demonstrators January 6th. What does that mean? Former Breitbart employee Dustin Stockton, helping to plan Ellipse event, helps move speakers to the January 5th rally to make them room for Trump to speak at the Ellipse rally. At 1 p.m., the U.S. Capitol added to the January 6th announcement the March to Save America website, blah, blah, blah. An internal Capitol Police intelligence reports warns that enraged protesters flanked by white supremacists and extreme militia groups are likely to arrive in Washington, armed for battle and to target Congress on January 6th. January 4th, Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio is arrested in D.C., charged for burning a Black Lives Matter banner on December 12th, possession of 2 high-capacity firearm magazines, which were in his possession at the time of the arrest. Why do you need 2 high-capacity firearm magazines in the middle of D.C. On January 4th? Secretary of Defense Miller issued orders which prohibited deploying D.C. Guard members with weapons, helmets, and body armor without his personal approval. National Park Service forecast the crowd size at 15,000. On January 5th, a rally is held at Freedom Plaza near the White House to protest the certification. The protest consists of a series of speakers and rallies. Rally was the March to Save America. No marching from 1 to 2. Stop the Steal from 3 to 5. 80% coalition to speak from 5 to 8:30. Blah, blah, blah. After speaking with Representative Loughran, Son reiterates to Representative Tim Ryan that the Capitol Police are prepared. At least 10 people are arrested during the evening into Wednesday morning, several on weapons charges. Federal Protective Service officers noticed protesters trying to camp on federal property. D.C. Mayor Brower writes to Acting Secretary Miller and authorities that district government is not requesting further operational help, blah, blah, blah. Then the attack on the Capitol. At noon, Trump began an hour speech encouraging protesters to march on the Capitol. Capitol Police respond to reports of an explosive device. 19 minutes before Trump ended the speech, rioters overran the perimeter of the Capitol building. 2:44, Capitol Police officer inside the speaker's lobby adjacent to the chambers shot and fatally wounded terrorist Barbie. Now at 4:17 p.m., a video of Trump was uploaded to Twitter in which he instructed them to go home now. Now this is very clear. This is after his own son said that Donald Trump, that he has to lead to Meadows. Several people, Hannity, lots of people were messaging Meadows, being like, he has to do something. But between 2:44 and 4:17 p.m., Trump sat there and did nothing. He did nothing to stop these people in their actions. Why? My only guess would be he tacitly endorsed what they were doing. He liked what they were doing in his name. 1:13 a.m. of January 6th, Ali Alexander, Stop the Steal organizer, tweets, first official day of the rebellion. Rebellion, huh? 3:23 a.m. Ron Watkins, image board administrator and prominent QAnon, posted a tweet accusing Vice President Mike Pence of orchestrating a coup against Trump. He also linked a blog post which called for the immediate arrest of Pence for treason. At 8:17, Trump's tweets, states want to correct their votes, which they now know are based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states, and we win. Do it, Mike. This is time for the extreme courage. At the time of permits, blah, blah, blah. Mo Brooks from Alabama makes a speech about kicking ass, asking, "Will you fight for America?" Federal Protective Liaison Officer informs Capitol Police that more than the permitted 30,000 protesters are expected. The Freedom Plaza permit was increased from 5,000 to 30,000. Benjamin Phillips splits from this group to Park, not reunited later, but dying of a stroke at George Washington University Hospital. During Rudy Giuliani calls for trial by combat. What does that mean? Trial by combat. This is Donald Trump's attorney is saying that there should be a trial by combat. Proud Boys contingent leaves the rally, marches towards Capitol building. Christopher Miller participates in tabletop exercise on the Department of Defense contingency. Options for the protest. Trump at noon begins his speech. He criticized Mike Pence by name a half a dozen times, accusing fellow Republicans of not doing enough to back his allegations, which were false. Gosar tweets that Biden should concede and demands his concession by the next morning. Laughable. Federal Protective Service officer writes in an email, POTUS is encouraging the protesters to march on Capitol grounds and continue protesting there. Capitol Police respond to a report of a possible explosive device by the RNC headquarters and DNC headquarters. Rioters overwhelm police along outer perimeter of Capitol building, pushes aside temporary fencing. Some protesters immediately follow, others initially remain behind, telling them don't do it, break the law. See, the ones saying don't do it, you're breaking the law, I'm not criticizing them. I'm criticizing the ones that did it and broke the law. By 1:03, a vanguard of rioters have overrun the layers of barricades. So again, this is 12:53 is when the rioters overwhelmed the police. So not even before. So 12:53 to 4:17. So 1:53, 2:53, 3:53. So about 3 hours and 20 minutes that Donald Trump let this happen. Now he might not have known that it was happening until after 1, but he knew it was happening at some point, and he liked that it was happening at some point. And when people called him, I think sent him the House Minority Leader. He called, I think, Trump, and apparently they got into an argument. Now apparently he is now back to being Trump's little whipping boy, but before then there was a fight. There was an argument between the two. Pence releases a letter stating at 1 p.m. That the Constitution prevents him from unilaterally interfering with the vote count. Thanks in part to Dan Quayle. Thank you, Mr. Quayle. Former Vice President Quayle. Mr. Potato. I'm a potato. And then they start going through all of the crap, and you can go through all this, the timeline's online, and but anyway, from 1 o'clock to 4:17, Donald Trump knew that this was going on and did nothing. He did nothing. Till 4:17. I know your pain, I know you're hurt, we had an election stolen from us. It wasn't stolen from them. It was a landslide election for Biden. And the people on the other side knew that it was a landslide election for Biden, because not only did Biden win, but we retook the Senate, because we won Georgia, because that's how unpopular Donald Trump made the Republican Party. Bringing a Boy says, you don't know that fight like hell was a rallying cry. What's trial by combat then, Bringing a Boy? What's trial by combat mean? What does that mean? What was Donald Trump's attorney telling the people to do when he called for a trial by combat? Hello? Anyone? Is this thing on? Daily News. No BLM were in Oregon, but Antifa was the ones hired to dress up as real American support. Oh, there's no evidence that Antifa was dressed up. So you're saying that the guy that wore the shirt that said 6 million wasn't enough? He was really Antifa? Really? No. These were racist anti-Semites who love Donald Trump and hate America. Well, they love the Confederate States of America, probably. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has called for a national divorce. Fine. Y'all can take North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Kansas, Oklahoma, Idaho, Montana, take all that. Maybe leave the indigenous lands alone, maybe. But take all that. You can call it Dumbfuckistan. You can install Donald Trump as leader for life. Build your wall. Not that anybody's going to want to go there, but build your wall. So wall yourselves off from the rest of the world. And go, and then like in 5 years when y'all die from some other disease, if COVID doesn't do it, some other disease will come along and it'll be nice and insulated because the wall, will stop anybody from, coming in or going. And then, we'll get the lands back because all of y'all are, in Dumbfuckistan are live up to your namesake. If that's what you want with your national divorce, go right ahead. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. How about them apples? Daily News, 81 million false votes. Yes, my vote was false, apparently. My vote was a false vote that was cast legally. In person. Yeah, no. And here's the one thing that many Donald Trump supporters don't get. Especially with their, let's go Brandon, let's go Brandon, yeah, let's go Brandon. Most Democrats don't give a crap. They don't care. There are many people who are not Democrats who are leftists who are like, yeah, F Joe Biden, just say it. We agree, F Joe Biden, but F Donald Trump more. Because that's why you didn't see massive rallies for Joe Biden. Well, a good chunk of the people who supported Joe Biden just because they did support Joe Biden understood the fact that we were in the middle of a pandemic and going to large rallies was not a smart idea. That's how you get Herman Cain killed. But the other group of the people who were voting for Joe Biden didn't come out to vote for Joe Biden because they liked him. They didn't like him. Democrats didn't like him. They voted for him, as far as I know. Why? Because Trump's worse. Trump's the worst president we've ever had. Because Trump doesn't want to have the United States of America. He wants the United States of Trump. He wants Trumpistan. He wants... Do you remember when he wanted the military parade in his honor early on in his presidency? Like, he admires people like Lil Kim out in North Korea. He admires Putin. He admires tyrants because he wants to be one. Except he doesn't have the courage to be one. He has to have everybody else do his battles. He has to con everybody else into trying to win his fights. And then when they do it, he just hangs them out to dry. There's lots of people who are sitting in jail right now. They're like, why didn't my president defend me? Why didn't he make me a pardon? Why didn't he pardon me for what I did in his name? Because he doesn't care about you, and he doesn't care about any of y'all. All he cares about is his power and his money. Period. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the second commercial break. Come back. Go back a little bit more of the year of review because, we want to do that at some point. Where is it? Where's the link? Where is the audio clip? There's the Stop the Coup block. Anyway, so yes, we'll be back in a few minutes. As Chuck Woolery would say, the conservative Chuck Woolery, back in 2 and 2. But anyway, call in 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nemes Josh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? YADA is an FDIC insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com. Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. You might have seen me talking a little more animated during the break if you're watching on the YouTube channel, and there's a good reason why. Here it is!
The Hypocrite of the Year is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell got Hypocrite of the Week so much this past year that I had no choice but to choose Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell as Hypocrite of the Year. To see who next year's Hypocrite of the Year will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan.
There you go. I quickly made Hypocrite of the Year audio just because I had to during a commercial break. So there you go. That's how well I was able to get that all together. So there you go. Mitch McConnell, Hypocrite of the Year. So still don't have words of redneck wisdom, but hey. I'm sorry. I still don't have words of redneck wisdom for this week, but
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald, and treasonous ass Donald Trump. But we will see what will continue to happen. I don't know how much convincing that can be done. If you are the people, if you're in the group of people who have to bring up the peaceful folks who were there, who didn't invade the Capitol, whenever anybody criticizes those that attack the Capitol, like bringing a boy does, like Jeff Carrera, the morning show that I listen to, like he does. If you're that type of person and have to do that, I don't know if there's any convincing you. I don't know how many people are available to be convinced of that what happened January 6th was wrong, that the people involved on January 6th should be punished, and that it's not just the people who entered the Capitol that should be punished, but those that inspired them, those that encouraged them, those that pushed for them to do their actions, those who incited that riot. They incited that insurrection, they should go to jail too. And one of those people, Donald Trump, should be locked away. Lock him up. Unfortunately, we don't have large enough people, who will be that vocal about it, because we'd rather, do the business of the country. Getting things for people during the remainder of the pandemic, or making sure that, people can have childcare so that parents can go back to work. Nationwide pre-K4, other things that are necessary for the improvement of this country. That's what they want to get done. Protecting voting rights, because the coup wasn't successful last year, but they're trying hard as hell to make the coup happen this next year in 2022. They want to retake the House by drawing lines that are even more ridiculous than what they were, and by putting forth laws that have nothing to do with election integrity, but are contrary to election integrity. And they do the whole thing by labeling them so-called voter ID laws, even though the problems with the items in those laws have nothing to do with a voter ID. Anyways, it's 9:08, my time. Let's go ahead and just kind of do a quick year in review. It's a second impeachment trial that was going on. Of course, the cowards in the Senate refused to do what their job was, and actually have a vote, and actually make sure that he could no longer run for office again, because he is that dangerous. We had more lies about actions going on in Georgia. I had dealt with some intactivists last year, people who were opposed to circumcision. That was an interesting topic. Let's go to March 2021. Go to the bottom of the page. A COVIDiot sandwich. Let's see. Allegations against Governor Cuomo to Louisiana Catholics seeming to go against the Pope. Texas and Mississippi eliminating mask mandates. Yeah, wow. Texas and Mississippi eliminated mask mandates all the way back in March of last year. Woo! Not even not even close to being over. And they were eliminating masks at that point. More on Republicans stealing elections and super stupidity. Iowa passed a law meant to crack down on supposed election fraud. What did they do? Will it help? You probably know the answer to the second question. This term super straight came out in March last year, which is super stupidity. The idea that one is super straight because one chooses not to date folks who are trans is ridiculous. A trans woman is a woman, and if you don't want to date a trans woman, if you're not attracted to somebody who happens to be a trans woman, that's your right. You don't have to date anybody that you're not attracted to. But the idea that you're, super straight is just about as stupid as gold star lesbians or gold star homosexual people. HR 1 and voting rights back in March 11th or March 17th. I don't know. We discussed HR 1, the impact it will have on voting rights, why it's needed, and it still hasn't been passed. Talked about gun rights as well, and the inability or refusal of people to do what's needed to be able to stop gun violence in this country. March 31st, 2001, we were talking about Matt Gaetz and his allegations of being involved in sex trafficking. That was fun. Wow, that was all the way back then. That's crazy. This has been a heck of a year. Let's see. I had an open lines call in. More comments to be made on Pizzagates. Derek Chauvin. We had Derek Chauvin get convicted guilty last year. That was a step in the right direction. I was complaining about Karen Carter's Peterson in the runoff election for LAO2. April 14th, we discussed the taser in the killing of Dante Wright, from the detainment of a soldier, Lieutenant Karan Nazario, to the killing of Dante Wright. Clearly something was wrong with modern policing. We discussed that. We discussed the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial, because that was in April. What happened with Michaela Bryant, why people are hypocrites with her and Kyle Rittenhouse, why the good guy with the gun theory is blown out the window with this police shooting. There's also the death of Andrew Brown. We talked about that in April. Biden's first 100 days in office, his semi-quasi State of the Union. We talked about that. May 2021, 21, as my kids would say. More on Republican election thievery. Cinco de Mayo was that day, talking about Texas and GOP, the Texas GOP and Florida GOP working hard so that they never have to win a political argument as long as they can cheat the system to win, as we've talked about on the show many times. Liz Cheney getting canceled by the Republicans who claim to hate cancel culture. Supposedly pro-life people, are they really pro-life? No, they're not really pro-life. You can't be pro-life if you're taking actions that help kill people. Let's see, June 2nd, AMC skyrocketed on June 2nd. was the 100-year anniversary of Black Wall Street. And we're talking about reparation, African descendants of slavery, and why we need reparation on more than just slavery. Talking about Pride Month, Ray Lancione from QWERTY Games to discuss the United for Pride fundraiser. That's forever ago as well. The fossil fuels, Netanyahu lost his position. That was, I can't believe this long ago. Discussed the history of racism in the hour or so that we had. Maybe I did a 3-hour show that day too. Talked about our system of justice. Didn't Wall Street just collapse today? I don't know. I didn't check my stocks yet. I don't know if I want to. I haven't made any purchases recently, and some of my stocks have been down, but they're my goodness. Oh, I shouldn't have checked my stocks. That's not good. That's paper losses. They can always come back up. Of course, the idea that they will come back up, that's a whole different theory. That's June. What else? We got July. What happened in July? Excuse me, a little thirsty. Started talking about in-school learning for children under 12. More children were going to ICU with the Delta variant, and that was a fun conversation in July. I was actually getting some traction locally on some of my stuff until Hurricane Ida hit. Did COVID contribute to the labor shortage? We discussed that. The Olympics were starting that week. If you've played Plague Inc., you should have known that was a bad idea. We discussed the Olympics, January 6th hearings, COVID-19, way back in July. Let's see, we're just zooming through the episodes just to kind of give it a year in review. August. This is when I really started kicking. Let's see. My season 10 premiere, August 4th, 2021. Talking about Maria Cuomo and the alleged sexual assault against 11 women. 1 woman is excessive. 11 women, you have to take it seriously. You have to not believe. There's no reason to believe that 11 people got together to lie. I have my open letter to New Orleans school officials on reopening with the Delta variant. I have more information about supposed learning loss for COVID-19, if it really happened or not. Discussion of rent theft. I've recently just had a rent theft discussion on my personal Facebook page recently. And here's one of my things with rent theft that I think a lot of people miss out on. And we'll briefly discuss this because I did want to discuss this week. And that's the fact that, a lot of times, you'll have a leftist or liberal type cause, and they'll use a slogan because the slogans are easy. They're catchy. Rent is theft is catchy. It's a short slogan. But there's a lot of meaning behind it that gets missed if you just focus on the slogan. Well, what do conservatives do? They hear rent is theft and they just attack the slogan. Why is rent theft? Blah, blah, blah. Why is one person renting out a bedroom in their house or a spare apartment in their house theft? It's not. But there's arguments to be made. The fact that if you of the combined amount of units that are owned by individual owners that own 1, 2, 3, or 4 units, or big corporate conglomerations that own hundreds and hundreds of units, there's something to be said about the fact that by restricting the supply artificially, they then allow you to increase the price that you can get for renting those out, because now the supply is short, so the demand is higher. You shorten the supply, demand's high, you get more money for rent than you probably should. That's the whole argument behind rent is theft. It's an artificial reduction of supply, whereas if you didn't have the artificial reduction of supply, maybe all the houses would be worth much less. Maybe all property would be much less, worth much less. Of course, people who disagree with rent is theft also like the idea of gentrification. I remember hearing a commercial on SiriusXM one day. It was like, gentrification is all the rage. You should gentrify. I'm like, what are you talking about? 818 was a 3-hour show. It was a very special episode of Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from Left, That's Right. If you want to peer into my mind, I made a show that was all about living as a fat person. So if you go to the August 11th show of Liberal Dan Radio, and I think this is maybe one of the ones that were one of the first ones on YouTube. Maybe one or two of them were available on YouTube, but it's one of the shows that I think it's probably one of my better shows. And it's kind of I go over facts as what people have to deal with who are overweight, adding in my own struggles with size and weight, etc. August 25th, we had the withdrawal of troops of Afghanistan, discussing that. September 1st, issues pertaining to Ida. So I was in Georgia at the time. Let's see. I posted that on August 31st. Weird. So let's see, September. So September, I was probably still in whatchamacallit for most of it. I might not have had that many posts about it this year. Yeah, there's one from September 15th. The failed California recall attempt, blah, blah, blah. There's not much on the blog, at least for September. I did have a couple of shows from September 2021 from Georgia, where I just basically did some stream of consciousness. And it's funny because those shows, you might find them a little more softly spoken because I was in the same room as my wife, and apparently every time I spoke like this, it put my wife right to sleep. So either I have a very soothing voice, especially when I'm keeping my voice down low, or I'm boring. Hopefully it was the former and not the latter. Discuss Kyle Rittenhouse, Texas shooting, Zodiac killer, Facebook, and more on 6, all the issues dealing with that. More on Kyle Rittenhouse and Texas. And this is where I started getting a lot of people coming into the show from other channels because of the whole Kyle Rittenhouse ruling. We discussed Stop the Coup, my videos that I started creating, and my partnership with Levelfield. That happened in October, and it hasn't been as successful as I would have liked it to be, but maybe we could make some changes. But I definitely want you guys' help on this one, and I need your guys' help on this one, because without your guys' help, I can't do it alone. And we need to fight this gerrymandering together. And so I have that video series. I might go ahead and make a new video tonight. We'll see. And then, again, another episode on Kyle Rittenhouse, because that was a pretty big chunk of what was happening in October. November. Talk a little bit more about guilty, not guilty, affirmative defenses. Had JP Morrell on the show. There was November 3rd, 2021, where we were questioning whether or not JFK Jr. would see a shadow, or whether or not you'd have 6 more weeks of Joe Biden. That was just ridiculous. How could you believe that? I mean, that's just how dumb these people are. They really believed that JFK Jr. was going to come back from the dead. Why JFK Jr.? I don't understand that. Why JFK Jr.? Why would he be their hero? They'll believe anything. It's so gullible. They would probably believe it if they were told them that the word gullible was removed from the dictionary. More on hypocrisy of being pro-life. And then, of course, the year-end in review. Of course, last month I'd missed a week because of my son's birthday. Oh, wait, I have a phone call. Hey, look at that. So we do have a call coming in. I just finished the year in review, so there we go. But we will take our caller. Oh, you're only on hold for about a minute, so I caught you pretty quickly. What's going on, caller?
Hello.
How's it going today?
I'm going pretty good. One of the things, I don't know if I can say, is it all right if I say this?
I mean, I don't know what you're going to say, so I'm not psychic. You can say whatever you want. Just try and keep cursing to a minimal. I mean, I do curse sometimes, but try and keep that to a minimum. But you can say what you could bring up whatever point you want to bring up.
One of the problems I find is, I don't mean libertarian, but right-wingers, they want to call everybody a hypocrite for shooting fake guns in movies, or being a gun owner but supporting gun control. But then when it comes to actual hypocrisy, like not wanting the police to have equal amounts of firepower or other things like that, all of a sudden it's a straw man for them. And even when people decide they're not going to shoot regular guns in movies, they still try to find something to complain about. And I even wrote Steven Crowder about that. It's like something. Anytime the right says it, automatic, it's fact, but then someone says something else, all of a sudden it's a straw man when it comes to gun and hypocrisy.
Well, there is a bunch of hypocrisy when it comes to many of the issues in politics. I mean, that's for certain. Did Crowder ever write you back? Did he respond to you?
No.
I didn't expect that. I wouldn't expected of him to do that. My experience with people who have like talk shows or YouTube channels or whatever on the right is that they often don't like to respond to people on the other side of the aisle unless they can absolutely prove. Unless they can absolutely just trample all over your argument. If you come with a weak argument, they're happy to take you on because they like shooting fish in a barrel. But if you go on and you try and bring them reasonable points, try and be reasonable, try and bring facts to the table, a lot of them won't want you on. It's one of the reasons that I still listen to the one conservative guy I listen to in the mornings, is because despite our various disagreements on many of the issues, almost all of the issues, I will say we agreed on one thing today, which was there was a case, I guess, was it in New York City, where a teacher injected a student with a COVID-19 vaccine without parental permission, without parental consent. That should be illegal, and we agreed on that. But generally, but even though we disagree on almost everything else, he'll still let me call up. He'll still let me make my points. Sometimes he'll cut me off, but he'll still let me, he knows that I'm going to try and bring facts and logic and reason and try and make reasonable arguments. And many of his callers will even say, hey, this guy, I might disagree with him, but he still tries to bring, although bringing a boy is saying that I'm gaslighting the show right now. That's funny. But do you have an example of the hypocrisy that the conservatives do, when they say it's a straw man versus when they're trying to when it comes to the guns in the movies versus their refusal to I can see one of them they'll shout all day long that people need to handle guns properly and need to be trained to handle guns properly in the movie sets, but they don't want people to be required to be trained to handle guns properly in public around other people. Then they're like, that's my Second Amendment right.
Then it's the same thing with the Fast and Furious thing. I mean, if this was what's his name, Jesse Ventura, I wouldn't mind him being against it, because at least he brings some stuff to it. But the Fast and Furious thing, that was just to prove a point. It wasn't really about Brian Terry's death. It was a prove a point against gun control. But then when you call them out on their hypocrisy, they'll say you don't get it. It's
right. Well, that's true. And one of the things they don't get about the whole Fast and Furious thing was that the Bush administration was pretty much doing it too. And I don't think that his death would have happened. I don't think that his death wouldn't have happened had the Obama administration hadn't been doing that with the planting of guns in order to try and trace where they're going to. It seems like it might be, if it's well run, it might be a reasonable thing to do to try and hey, let's see where these guns are going so we can trace them and get the really bad guys. If they didn't do that, I'm sure the bad people would have found another way to get a gun, and they would have still killed the guy. So the idea that the Obama administration was somehow responsible for that death is absolutely absurd.
It's very disgusting too how they tried to prove a point like that, but then they'll call someone else. They'll say someone else is exploding a death. When Alex Jones says, I get really angry because he's pretending to care about these victims.
Right.
He'll say things like this didn't happen or that didn't happen. He was on the Fast and Furious thing too.
Right, so he was on the Fast and Furious, but he'll then claim that everything was a false flag, and that the kids didn't really die in Sandy Hook, and that it was all fake, and because it's a whole conspiracy against guns. That's how they roll. That's one of the things that I've said many times on the podcast is that conservatism is hypocrisy is a conservatism prerequisite. There's not many conservatives out there, in elected officials, people out there, on, as part of the conservative media. There's not a lot of those people who who you can't point to and say hypocrite. That's why Mitch McConnell was hypocrite of the year, because you could point to Mitch McConnell, hypocrisy, every time he breathes, he probably is doing something hypocritical. So, that's why he got that. It's just, I do want to know though, if Bringing a Boy is still listening. I think you are. What was I specifically saying that was gaslighting? He said that in the Blog Talk Radio chat. So I really want to know what it is that Bringing a Boy believes that I was gaslighting about, because that should be good. And that might be the last point. But do you have any other comments to make on that or anything else? Hello?
Because this is the same guy that didn't want... This is the guy that doesn't want to admit to racism, but then he wants to talk about the Democratic plantation. It's like, I get mad about that too. It's like, you want us to go against our own interests, or people who are other vulnerable, other underdogs, but then you don't want to speak for us when it comes to actually addressing racism.
Right. No, that's it. Every time a Republican is like, oh, they're on the plantation, they want you living on the plantation, I just roll my eyes. I look backwards. I roll my eyes back so hard, because the difference between like getting aid to help you when you're stuck in a rut, like food stamps or welfare or any other benefit that might pay for your health care or whatever, like Medicaid, Medicare, earned income tax credit or whatever, all these things are to benefit people, to help try and elevate them out of the situation that they're in. Do they work perfectly? No. Could there be improvements on how we do the systems? Absolutely. But they're in no way comparable to being a slave. It's just they're tone deaf, because at the end of the day, they whine and bitch and complain about the fact that you don't have a lot of voters who are black who vote for Republicans, even though they have a couple. They have some. You have, and they try and make him as prominent as possible when they're not killing him at Tulsa, Oklahoma rallies, like Herman Cain. But, at the end of the day, their policies that they support are just so pro, only white and anti-minority. It's sick. Like, all the things that they do in these so-called voter ID laws, where all these other things that are not related to an ID are specifically done to try and make it so that you reduce the power of the black vote and reduce the power of black people at the election. And it's so, like, what's sad is that people don't see it. They the ones that choose to not see it because they want to push the lie. But then there are those who just refuse to see it because they've been so brainwashed into thinking that, oh, well, if a low liberal's saying it, so it can't be right. Or they'll be like, if you look at my Facebook page, and I don't know, might have to scroll back through the images a bunch, because I haven't posted any one of these recently yet. But if you go to facebook.com/liberaldan, and there's some examples of screenshots that I've taken in conversations on Facebook where I'll say, look, my problem with these so-called voter ID laws are not the requirement to have a voter ID, but the other portions of the laws that have nothing to do with a voter ID requirement that are specifically done to do that. And then I'll call my shot, and I'll say specifically, even though I've just said that my problem is with the non-ID provisions of these so-called voter ID laws, there's going to be some conservative that comes along that's going to say, well, what's wrong with requiring an ID? Even though I just said there's nothing wrong with requiring it. I have no problem with the specific requirements to prove who you are in order to cast a ballot. It's these other issues that they've been so trained. It's almost like a trained seal. Like, they hear the word voter ID law and they automatically go, well, what's wrong with requiring an ID? That's why they called them voter ID laws, so they could do that manipulation. But there are some issues with what they do with voter IDs as well. For example, North Dakota, they made it so that you can't use ID unless it has a street address. You can't use a driver's license that has a P.O. box. Well, many Native Americans in the state of North Dakota do not have street addresses or traditional street addresses, and many of them use a P.O. box because they're living on the registrations, and the streets that they would live on are not formally accepted as streets under the state, so that's why they use a P.O. box. And so they prevented them from voting because they couldn't show a street address. Well, that's disenfranchisement right there. And they knew that such policies would specifically disenfranchise Native American voters, but they did it anyway. So not even the voter ID, not every voter ID thing is about, making sure that people prove who they are. Some of those requirements are making sure that people can't vote who are going to vote against them.
Right.
But you just say the word voter ID law, and it's just a Pavlovian response. Like, you ring the bell, the dog drools, you say voter ID. Even if you say I don't have a problem with the requirement ID, they'll be like, well, what's wrong with requiring ID? It's not that. It's that Georgia's telling people that you can't give water out. Let's see, Daily News. Dan, where is this lefty guide on how to steal an election? There is no lefty guide on how to steal an election. According to one of the amazing things was it Rand Paul? Was it Rand Paul who said it this past week? He said Democrats want to have people cast ballots. And are you talking about lefty guide or righty guide, Daily News? Are you talking about, the left wing on quote the conspiracy theory that Democrats want to steal elections by making sure that every vote counts and making sure that every vote that does count is counted equally? Stop the coup at liberaldan.com if you want to help me fight with that, by the way. Let's see, Rand Paul, Democrats. That's another one who was Hypocrite of the Week, but not as much as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell voting tweet. Let's see if I can find that with that Google search foo. Here it is. Rand Paul, how to steal an election, according to Rand Paul. Seeding an area heavy with potential Democratic votes with as many absentee ballots as possible, targeting and convincing potential voters to complete them in a legally valid way, and then harvesting and counting the results. According to Rand Paul, casting legal ballots is stealing an election. Like, what the hell? It's like they don't even hear themselves speak. Like, I don't understand how he could have tweeted those words seriously. I'm supposed to take Rand Paul seriously. Bringing a Boy says, right there, Dan, you want money from innocent people to start a coup? No, I want money from people to help fight the coup. It's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com, not instigate a coup. I want stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. I want everybody to share it far and wide, because if you've watched the videos, Bringing a Boy, you would have seen, you would see that not only I'm nonpartisan in these videos. If there's a Democratic state, like I think Connecticut, that does not adequately represent its people in Congress fairly, I say so. And if there's a Republican state, like I think Nebraska, that doesn't adequately represent its people fairly, I say so. And then I look at the numbers, and then at the end of the day, once we finish all the states, and we take a look at every single state and how they represent their voters in Congress, we're going to see which states do a better job than other states, which side has the electoral advantage or the congressional advantage or the advantage in getting seats in Congress as compared to how many people come out to vote as a whole statewide. And we're going to see who's the one who is really stealing elections and who is the one trying to restore the power of the vote to the people who are having their power taken away. I'll give you a hint. Here's a spoiler. It's not the Democratic Party that's doing it. It's the Republican Party that's doing it. Take Louisiana, for example. It's one of the videos I've already done. Louisiana has 6 congressional seats. Louisiana only has 1 Democratic seat. Even though Louisiana voted a third of the votes went to Joe Biden. So if you had a third of the votes going to Joe Biden, you should have a third of the congressional seats going to Joe Biden. We don't have a third. We have a 6th. So Democrats have half as much say as they should in the state of Louisiana. Furthermore, and I'm only going by presidential election results. If you go by the last gubernatorial election, the last 2 gubernatorial elections in Louisiana, we elected a conservative Democrat. So there's an argument to be made that not only should you have 2 Democratic districts that are strong Democratic minority districts, you should also have a 3rd district that would be swing enough that would elect either a moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican. That should be a flippy district. But Are they going to do that? No, because the Republicans control the Louisiana legislature, and the Republicans are the one that write the votes. And Edwards might vote against it. He might veto it, but I mean, you're still that would still keep the horribly drawn districts. And I mean, if you look at the 2nd Congressional District of Louisiana, it's terrible. It covers 14 parishes, or as what the rest of the country would say, counties. It covers 14 counties. It basically winds up the Mississippi River and goes from East New Orleans to West Baton Rouge. It's a long distance to cross, with a lot of people shoved in there very tightly. Now, are there Democratic states that do the same thing? Absolutely. Again, Connecticut is one of those states that do not, there should be more Republicans representing Connecticut in the House than currently do. The state legislature in Connecticut has not figured out a way to adequately represent their people in Congress. And I'm critical of them. And I'm critical of every other state that does it in that way. I'm just going to say that there's one party that's extremely guilty, and there's one party that tries to play nice. And the idea, there was no problem with the lines in 2020. Well, in 2020, we had a lot of people being able to vote absentee. We had a lot of more people voted absentee than normally would because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although there were people who did stand in line to vote hours, and because they saw that even in the middle of a pandemic in Georgia, that people were willing to stand up in line and wait hours to vote, that now they want to make it more uncomfortable. So in your rural counties where there's not a lot of lines, where it's because you're not densely populated, they'll all be able to go quick, no problem. But in the Democratic counties where you have, large population centers, you're going to have long lines, and the Republicans in the state are going to make sure that the lines are even longer for the Democrats than they are for the Republicans, and make it as uncomfortable as it can be to cast a ballot. That's why they included the prohibition on handing out free water. Right now in Georgia, if there was an election, and if I was in Georgia, and if we lived in Georgia, and let's say my wife was standing in line to vote, and she said, "Hey, I'm thirsty, can you bring me a water?" And I brought my wife a bottle of water, I would be violating Georgia's election law simply by bringing my wife a bottle of water. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And if you watch the videos, especially if you watch the GOP Coup series, the 4-video series that I've created so far, that does not even get to the January 6th insurrection. If you watch what happened, I think it's the 2nd video in the series, you will see that the Republicans maintained a strong lead in 2012 in the House of Representatives, despite losing the national popular vote. Now, you choose, congressional elections by districts, not by the popular vote, but the House is supposed to be the House of the people. And if you have adequately drawn districts that adequately represent the people in your state correctly, you should be able to expect that if you get a majority of the votes nationwide, you're probably going to have a majority of votes in majority of the seats in Congress. But no, the way the Republicans redrew the maps, because they controlled the legislatures after 2010, because of Project Red Map, they were able to make it so that even though they lost the popular vote by nationwide by 1 million, they still maintained, I think, a 30-seat advantage at the top. So the Democrats are trying to fix those things. The Democrats are trying to make sure that the power of a vote is the same regardless of where you sit. And the Republicans call that stealing an election. And Rand Paul calls casting ballots in a legally valid way and then counting the results. To Rand Paul, that's stealing an election. That's how much the Republicans have jumped the shark. Let's see.
Also, sir.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was talking about, one of the things I got about Rand Paul is he's another one of those people that doesn't want officers to have the same amount of firepower that the civilians have. And one of the things is people talking about officers being militarized. Well, I'm not for them being militarized, but as long as we have citizens that have anything they want, I'm not going to say, well, the police shouldn't have this, but the civilians should have whatever they want, because when you have that, you have other things like Miami or Los Angeles where the officers are outgunned. And one of the things that also doesn't make sense is them talking about militarized SWAT teams. I don't know if back in the days tactical teams had just handguns or anything like that, but I mean, at least now, if it's a situation with someone robbing a bank, you don't know what type of weapon they have. They need to protect themselves and protect the civilians. And like I said, I don't know if tactical teams had rifles back in the 20s. They may have, they may not have, but now they need them if they're tactical, and maybe put them away if it's just a handgun or something like that.
Well, I think that's some of what should be done, where you have your standard police issues where you have your standard firearms that a police officer might have, and then you have like the special weapons and tactics. Like if it's called for, then you can bring out the special weapons like the to be able to react to an extreme situation. But it shouldn't be the default. It shouldn't be the default that they're all walking around with large gun. But it also shouldn't be the default that individuals are walking around openly carrying large weapons like they did during the whole shooting with Kyle Rittenhouse, like in Ferguson. Like you can't Ferguson. No, Kenosha. You can't. You shouldn't. People sitting there walking around with these openly carrying their rifles is just making a situation more tense than what it needs to be. And yes, I agree with them. Like SWAT teams don't need tanks and rocket launchers. That's also true. But one of the ways that these police departments wind up getting these large, weapons, tanks, ridiculous armaments that they don't need is because of things like civil asset forfeiture. And that's one thing that, libertarian-minded folks and myself will agree that civil asset forfeiture is a corrupt activity that takes place, in many police departments, where they just seize your money and you have to then fight to get your money back if they suspect you of a crime, or because they word it some weird way where the money is in and of itself is the crime and not the person, so therefore they seize it and then you have to prove that you should be able to get it back. That's not how things should work. And libertarian-minded folks tend to agree with that statement. But the Republican type folks who have no issue with it, or be like, okay, let's just take it. Like there was one person who I think was going to buy either a vehicle or a horse or something, and he was flying with like $10,000 because it was going to be a cash transaction. Why you would fly with $10,000? I would never feel safe walking around with $10,000 in cash just on me. But that just because you have a large chunk of money doesn't mean that the TSA should be able to take it from you, basically steal it from you. And so civil asset forfeiture allows these police departments to be able to buy these, ridiculous weapons caches. Let's see. Bringing a Boy says, let's see, your whole show has caution all over it. I don't understand what that means. Even you think that the crowd on 1/6/2021 were there to storm the people's house. There were people there, again, there were people there who were there to storm the people's house. Not everybody that was there was storming the people's house. But again, you're being disingenuous, Bringing a Boy, by bringing up the people that weren't there to do illegal activities and bringing them up when I bring up the people who were there actually committing illegal activities. He goes, there is no coup unless you are counting Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia. What? I don't understand what you mean right there, Bringing a Boy. I don't understand. Oh, there you go. Daily News agrees with me. Civil forfeiture is theft. So we can agree on something. SWAT teams used to be a sidearm and HK MP5 and better body armor. Yeah. Massachusetts has the lowest standards for asset forfeiture. So that basically means Massachusetts, it's easier to do civil asset forfeiture than other states, maybe? I don't know. But one would think that we should all be able to get together and say, this is abuse of power. This needs to stop. Okay, so caller, do you have any other points you want to make? Because I'm probably going to wrap up the show soon.
I need to ask one more question.
Sure.
My mom, I was wondering, when there was this gang called the El Rukin Gang in Chicago, and it was ATF and FBI came to them, and there was a box truck that said ATF on it, and the people were in like raid jackets. I was wondering if they did that, if that's for safety, or is that like because they were gangs that had explosives and guns and stuff in Chicago. And I was wondering if like the ATF truck was basically like for protection of everybody, and the people in the ATF raid jackets came into that truck.
I don't know enough about that specific situation to be able to give enough of an informed opinion about what went on with that. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a more armored vehicle to come in, like, everybody, most everybody probably has seen Die Hard, and they bring in the big old tank to come in, and then, the bad guys try and blow up the tank.
Yeah.
APC tank is armor, not a tank. Okay. So ATF is federal, pretty sure. So yeah, there's a difference between ATF having some of these things versus like local police having some of these things. And perhaps when you're dealing with, gang level stuff and as such, probably issues of racketeering and other issues on top of that, you're going to probably have, when the feds come in, they're probably going to have bigger weapons to bear. But again, I don't know enough about that specific situation to be able to give an informed enough of an opinion in order to be able to, answer your question properly. And so I'm willing to admit that I don't know everything. It's clearly I don't.
Yeah, I know. Because when I see them in the raid jackets, that's when I see the trucks. But when I see them in suits, that's when I see the cars.
Ah, okay. City of Boston doesn't need an M1 Abrams. No, they don't. Where are they going to park it in Boston? I don't know if there's any place you can park an M1 Abrams. Sorry for my bad Boston accent. I'll just drive Devinox crazy with that. Not unless my fire department gets an SR-71. That's the number that I was looking for, SR-71. Yeah, we were trying to have a conversation about that, because that's the Blackbird, right? My EMT gets an F-22 Raptor. F-22 Raptor I ran trivia on New Year's Eve at the local cider joint down here, and one of my questions was dealing with just the number 22, and so one of the questions was, this plane, known as the F-22, is also known by this bird of prey, and only one team got it right. Everyone else guessed other types of birds. But then afterwards we were talking about the Blackbird, and I think that is the SR-71 now that I'm thinking about it. So, anyway, so, caller, what was your name again? Khalil, thank you very much, Khalil, for calling in the show. I do hope, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope you follow me here on Blog Talk Radio as well. And, I welcome you to call in each and every week. I'd be lovely to have you. Share the show with your friends. Check out my videos on stopthecoup.liberaldan.com, and also on just all the videos I put up on YouTube. I try and put up more content, though. End of the year, so kind of gotten away with that. But I do appreciate your call. Thank you so much for calling in, and I love having more and more listeners. And here's hoping that one more in a group of many new callers, listeners who will call in and support the show by calling in, by joining the chat, by doing various other things as well. But we are not going to do a 3-hour show this week because, I don't want to do a 3-hour show every week, especially if I'm not getting, super lots of advertising to be able to do that. And we're not at that point yet. So every once in a while you might get a treat of 3 hours of Liberal Dan Radio, but we're not gonna do that each and every week. Unless there's enough issues to talk about it. But again, R.I.P. Betty White. You were a national treasure and will surely be missed. Anyway, so if anybody else has nothing else to say, we're going to terminate this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. We will be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan or Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter, Facebook.com/LiberalDan, YouTube.com/LiberalDan Radio as well. Remember to like this video, share lots of videos with your friends. Go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com to help me stop the coup, fight gerrymandering and other voter suppression tactics. And remember to subscribe on YouTube as well, because that's the best way to help grow the show if you can't become Liberal Dan Radio Patreon. Shouts out to Deminox, Cesar, your boy Chris, and the host of the most, Nimbus Yosh, with the smooth sounds of the Percy Podcast. Again, until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from left, that's right. Sleeves up, mask up, protect your neighbors, protect yourselves, and have a